I recently met with a woman who is a LinkedIn coach, and she's incredible at what she does. She helps her clients land tons of projects and tons of business just through LinkedIn alone. And we had a great conversation, and she asked me very genuinely, and I thought it was such a good question, do people even need websites anymore? If someone has a really active social media, they're active on LinkedIn, they're active on Instagram or wherever they are, does someone even need a website? Is it worth investing in a website? Now, of course, I'm biased here because I build websites. That is one of the services that I offer. But I want to have a really honest discussion about this because it's a really good question. And my TLDR spoiler alert is not everyone needs a website. So let's dive in and talk about when you really need a website, when it's worth investing, and when you really don't need one and probably should forego that investment. Let's dive in. Hey, beautiful human. You're listening to Bold Women in Business, the show where strategy meets soul in marketing, branding, and business growth. I'm your host, Rachel Honeyman, messaging and branding strategist, content queen, and compulsive meaning maker. Every week, I'll help you ditch the cookie cutter playbook and build a brand that actually sounds like you, sells like hell, and feels so damn good to show up for. Let's get bold. Before we get into when you need a website versus when you don't, I want to share a line that I always come back to, which is I always describe your website as the welcome mat for your business. It can either tell people that they should come in, share a cup of coffee with you, or a bite to eat. It welcomes them in. They immediately want to spend more time with you and with your business. Or it can be one of those welcome mats that is not a welcome mat at all, but says, go away, get out of here, right? We've all seen those like jokey welcome mats where people just don't want someone to come into their house, and so they put that on their front step. Your website can do that too. It can scare people away. It can immediately lose people's interest. It has a lot of power, especially your homepage. Your homepage is the welcome mat for your entire business. But when do you need a website versus when do you not need one? Because the truth is, not everyone needs a website. Here's when I would say, don't bother. If you are just starting out in your business and you're still figuring out what are your offers, what's your message, who are your people, it might not make sense yet to invest in a website, or at least not in a professionally done website. Plenty of people get their start with a DIY website. It really depends on the nature of your business, obviously. There are plenty of people that I work with on a website to launch their business, but that relies on having all those other pieces kind of figured out. So we go into it understanding what's their offer, what's their brand, what's their messaging, who are the people that they're trying to talk to, and then we build a website around that, and that really sets them up for a really strong launch. But if you're just starting out and you're not quite sure what you want to focus on yet, you're not quite sure how you want to build your business, and you're just kind of getting your feet wet, it might make sense to take a beat and wait a little bit before you put the investment into launching a website. Now, coming back to that conversation that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this woman that I spoke with herself has no website. She is just building her trust and authority, and she's landing clients just fine through LinkedIn alone. That's it. She's done a really good job of nailing her messaging and doing great outreach and doing all of the things that she needs to build the trust to land clients. And she's helping her clients do the same. In that case, I would say it's okay to go without a website, but I'm going to talk in a minute about why I still think it's a good idea for most people. One important thing to understand about when you don't need a website is that a website should not exist just for the sake of having one. So if it doesn't really serve a purpose, I would say don't invest in the website. It's not worth it. There's this phrase that's said often that's actually kind of like the foil to my phrase of your website is the welcome mat for your business, which is a lot of people think that your website is just a digital business card for your business. Now, think about a business card, right? How many business cards do you have sitting in a drawer, forgotten, that you will never look at again? You go to a networking event and you get a stack of business cards and you never look at those again. Thinking of your website as a digital business card is just as dangerous. It's just something that is going to sit there on the internet. No one is going to care to go deeper with your business and understand who you are and really engage with the work that you do because your website exists just to give the information. Here's who I am. Here's a link to my LinkedIn. When you think of your website as a digital business card, usually that means that it essentially is a LinkedIn bio, right? A LinkedIn bio in website form, or it's your resume in website form. That is not going to be an effective way to build trust and build a brand and get people interested in the work that you do. So if you're approaching your website in that way, please don't bother. You're wasting your money, you're wasting your effort, all of that. Just don't focus on having a website until you're ready to actually have a website. Okay, so let's talk about when websites do matter. Who needs a website? So a website is super important when you are at that point where you have your offers figured out, you have a brand figured out, and we'll talk about the nuances of this in just a second, and you are ready to be taken seriously. So where this really comes into play is when someone lands on your LinkedIn page or your Instagram. Let's say you're killing it with your social media content. Like the woman that I spoke with, right? She's killing it with her LinkedIn content. She's booking clients. She's doing great. But I will tell you that when I met with this woman before we hopped on a call, the first thing that I did, which is always the first thing that I do, and it's the first thing that most people are going to do, is they're going to click on your bio and they're going to click on contact info and they're going to visit your website. And if they don't see a website, it automatically sets off some alarm bells. So even if most people are not finding you through your website, they are going to use your website to validate whether they can trust you. It's also really important if people are starting to Google you. And I guarantee you they are. People are Googling you. If you meet someone at a networking event and you give them your business card, and let's just say in some hypothetical universe, they do not just stuff your business card in a drawer. They look at your business card and they see, oh, she doesn't have a website. Let me Google her and see if I can find her website. Maybe she just forgot to put it on her business card. They're going to Google you and they're going to find you do not have a website. That, again, is just eroding that trust. We are in a world right now with the rise of AI, and I love AI. I really do. I think it's great. There are a lot of caveats to that, of course, but I lean on it heavily. And I think we're all leaning on it heavily, and learning to use it well is great. But one of the caveats of AI is that it has created a general sense of distrust. People don't trust what they're seeing because, this happens every day, right? We see videos on social media and you share it with a friend and then they say, oh, that's AI. And you feel like an idiot because how did you not realize that it was AI? We are learning to mistrust anything that we see. And so even if I see some evidence in your social media posts, or I meet you face to face and I get a business card from you, or whatever my interaction with you is, if I see you and I then go to Google to verify, are you legit? And I don't get verification that you're legit, I'm going to have those alarm bells going off. Another reason a website is super important is when you are at the mercy of platforms that don't belong to you, you're in a lot of trouble. We've all experienced this at this point where, Instagram goes down or LinkedIn goes down. Let's just say you're getting 100% of your business through LinkedIn and LinkedIn goes down for a day or two or however long, or they change the algorithm and all of a sudden your posts are not being shown to as many people and you're just not getting as much business. You're in a lot of trouble if you don't have another platform, another way of building trust. And so that's where also, having an email list is really important because that is your owned audience. That's your owned audience. But your website is the same way. Your website is owned content that is yours and it belongs to you. People can find you through Google if you have all the SEO pieces set up correctly, but it gives you some more security than relying on an external platform completely. Another reason having a website is super important is when you are explaining the same thing over and over in the DMs, that's a really good signal that if you had a landing page to explain this better, you could just send someone a link, right? So let's just say you have an offering. You do a certain type of art therapy and you're offering a workshop, right? You have a workshop that's coming up and you do art therapy. Instead of going back and forth with people in the DMs explaining what this workshop is, if you had a website where everything is laid out really clearly and it gives people a full experience of who you are and a full understanding of what you do, it builds so much trust and it makes your life a lot easier to have that set up. And the truth is that a well-done website builds credibility and trust in a way that social media just can't. And I say that as a really big proponent of social media. I use it all the time. It is a major, major builder of my own business. I would say that most of my business does come through social media in some form or fashion. But I'm telling you that people tell me this all the time. They see my content on social media and then they immediately go to my website and then they come back to me and they say, "Oh my God, I love your website. Oh my God, your brand is so great. I love what I'm seeing from you. Tell me more." But again, that relies on having a really good website that captures your brand, that captures your services, that tells people what you do and why you are the perfect person to help solve their problem. A bad website is much worse than having no website at all. So if you're going to invest in having a website, make sure that it is a good one. Quick pause. Can we talk about content for a second? If you're staring at a blank screen more often than you're hitting post, it might be because you're trying to create content that doesn't fit your actual strengths. It's kind of like wearing someone else's jeans. They may look super good on your friend, but you put them on and they are not comfortable and they just aren't doing your butt any favors. That's why I created the Content Marketing Power Type Quiz. It's free and it helps you figure out the kind of content you were made to create. The kind of content that feels natural, sustainable, and actually connects with your people in a way that lights you up. In just 45 seconds, or maybe even 30 if you're quick about it, you're going to find out your power type and get custom recommendations to make content feel easier and more effective. Head on over to honeybeebold.com/quiz. That's HONEYBEBOLD.com/quiz. Take it and then DM me your result because I kind of need to know. All right, let's dive back into the episode. So what makes a website actually work? What makes it good versus bad? If you're at the point where you do need a website in your business, and again, most people are there on some level, but if you're ready to invest in a website or you have a website already, but you're not sure that it's working for you, let's talk about what actually matters. It is not fancy animations or having the coolest design. That is not what makes a website really work. There's so much that happens before we even get to the design. Before we start designing a website, we have to start with a really clear foundation. So I start every website and really every project that I do, I start with what I call my bold foundation. I often refer to it as brand therapy here on the pod. This is where we get super clear on who you are, who you serve, what sets you apart, why what you do matters, right? Why are you building this brand to begin with? And this forms your brand strategy. Your brand strategy is the root system of your company, and everything else grows from there. So this looks like your core values, that's what you stand for, your brand personality, which is how you show up, your positioning, so that's what makes you different. That's what makes you the best fit for your people. We get into your audience and their deepest needs and desires. And this clarity really allows you to build so much more than just a brand and just a website, the real welcome mat that you're trying to create. You want your website to be that welcome mat that brings people in. If you don't know who you are and who your audience is, you don't even know how to invite them in, right? You don't know how to talk about your brand in the right way to bring them into the fold. And honestly, this is why so many websites feel super generic because they just skip this step. I see this happen all the time that people come to me and they have a website, but it's just not working for them. And the real reason is they never took the time to define what is their brand strategy, what is their brand foundation. And they need that foundation to build a really distinctive brand that comes to life in the website. So big mistakes that I see are jumping straight to design or copy without doing the inner work first. Trying to be everything to everyone. That's a big one. We love to try to appeal to everyone, but when you're talking to everyone, you're really talking to no one. That is such a key thing. We need to understand who our audience is. And a big mistake is that you're trying to copy what everyone else in your industry is doing instead of standing out. And of course, you're going to do that if you don't have a clear understanding of what sets you apart as a brand. So that's where this foundational step is super, super, super important. Once we have that foundation built, we can build a framework around how to talk about your brand. This is where your brand strategy becomes actual words. So your messaging framework is really the through line of everything that you say on your website and really everywhere else. This is really why I start most of my clients with the brand and website. Most people are coming to me first for the brand and website, and then we will continue that into our content work because content is what drives traffic to your website. But we really start with this foundation of the website because that gives us the messaging pieces to play with. That gives us the messaging framework that we build all other marketing messaging from. Clear messaging looks like someone landing on your homepage and immediately understanding what you do, who you serve, why they should care, and really understanding what makes you different. There are way too many websites that I see where I land on the website and immediately say, I have no idea what this person does. And often those are the coolest looking websites, right? We've all seen those, like super cool websites with like super cool animations, eye-catching design, and you can spend, 5 minutes on the website and have zero idea what this person or company does. We never want that to happen. So that is one of the mistakes that I see is just like overly cool design without a lot of emphasis on messaging and really being clear about like who you are, what you do, who you serve, how you help. Another mistake I see is people tend to put way too much text. There are these walls of words that nobody is going to read. And this is one of the hardest parts of writing for the web. So to give you a little bit of background, I have a master's in English. I got my start in the academic world. And in the academic world, if you're not familiar, we're all about writing a lot of words. Using a lot of words to say a lot of nothing. That is pretty common in the academic world. But my first job out of graduate school was actually in the world of web content. And then I just went further and further down that road. And one of the hardest things for me to learn 15, 16 years ago was how to write copy for the web in a way that uses the least amount of words possible and breaks up the text in ways that my academic self often would cringe at, but makes it just super easy to scan. And so just one thing that I want to caution you about is when you have these big blocks of text on your website, I'm just going to tell you people are not reading it, people are glossing over it, and you always have to assume that people are scanning in the quickest way possible. So how can we make it as easy as possible to scan and get the gist of what you're saying and really capture the essence of what you're saying in the clearest way possible? Unclear messaging is such a big, big, big thing that I see where people are using vague language or they use like jargon. That actually is becoming more of an issue with AI. Like people are using a lot of jargon because AI tells them to. People try to sound professional on their websites instead of like deeply human. And Again, it depends on your industry. I'm not going to make assumptions here, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably some type of creative entrepreneur. And so really leaning into human messaging is so, so, so important. Your website copy should sound like you're having a conversation with a friend. It should sound like you are texting a friend, honestly. So it should be just really natural and easy to engage with. But one thing that's really important is that you should always be talking about your client. So even when you're writing in first person language, think about how your client or potential client, how the person on the other side of the screen is engaging with this. They are coming to your website, hopefully, to get an understanding of who you are and evaluate whether you're worth working with, right? And so they really need to see themselves in your content. They need to see the challenges that they're going through, the struggles that they're going through, all needs to be very clearly outlined in your content. Your website is not your personal diary. We're not MySpacing it here, right? This is a conversation with someone who has a problem that you can solve. And so that needs to come through really clearly. And the biggest mistake that I see across the board on websites is that people make their visitors hunt for how to work with them. If it is not clear right off the bat how I can work with you, how I can hire you, you have already lost me. So really important tips. Lead with the transformation that you offer clients, not just the process. Speak to the problem that they're experiencing right now. Make your text super, super easily scannable. And like when you think that it's easily scannable, make it even more easily scannable. You should be breaking up text with headers and short paragraphs, a lot of white space, bullets, graphics, whatever you can do to make it visually engaging and easy to scan. And have clear CTAs throughout your content. Do not make people guess what to do next. Now, let's get to the part that you probably want to hear about, which is design, right? Good design makes your message easier to absorb. We talked about this in detail with Sandy a few weeks ago when we got into the nitty-gritty of how good design helps a brand really come to life. So good design makes your message easier to absorb, while bad design makes people work too hard. And this is true in every part of your brand, and your website is probably in some ways the most important because again, your website is your trust builder and it's your trust verifier. So when someone comes to your website and they are inundated with design that is like hard on the eyes, it's not easy to engage with, it's cluttered, it makes it hard to actually understand the message. You could have the best messaging ever, but if the design doesn't match that, it's not going to work. This is actually one of the reasons that I personally never separate design and messaging. So occasionally I'll have someone come to me and they'll say, okay, I have a web designer already. I have a web designer. Can you just write the copy for my website? There are very few exceptions where I will say yes to that. It has happened. I'm not going to say never. But as a rule, I don't do that. As a rule, I design and write copy together because that's just my personal process. I am really careful to design around the messaging and message around the design, and they work best when they are done in tandem. For me personally, that's my approach. Every agency is different, but that is my approach. So what matters with your design is your visual hierarchy. So you're guiding the eye to what matters the most. Your consistency is so important to your fonts, your colors, the spacing that feels cohesive, not chaotic. You're leaving breathing room. We love some white space. And you're using really intentional imagery. So your photos and graphics really support your brand. You're not just using random stock photos that could belong to anyone. The biggest mistakes that I see are sloppy, very clearly DIY design that screams, I did not invest in this. I don't care about this. That is such a signal to your clients, your potential clients. There's just too much happening. Every section is fighting for attention. There's tons of text and tons of design elements going on all at once, and the design doesn't really match the brand. So For example, you might have like a calming minimalist brand. Your logo has that vibe to it, but the website has a very loud and chaotic design. We need to make sure that there's consistency and cohesion across the board. So as a reminder, you do not need the fanciest website on the internet. Often the fanciest websites are the ones that are the least clear. You need a website that feels like you, like your brand, makes your people feel seen, and helps people really understand what you do, why they should work with you. Your website should feel like walking into your favorite coffee shop. You immediately know you're in the right place, right? Where everybody knows your name. Sorry, I really promised that I would keep the singing on the podcast to a minimum. We're done now. Okay, so quick recap. We've got our brand foundation, our messaging framework, and then our design. And all of that comes together into a website that builds trust, communicates clearly, and makes it easy for people to say yes to working with you. So if you don't have a website yet, don't rush it just to check a box. Don't just set up a website for the sake of setting up a website. When you are ready, do it right, starting with strategy, not with design, making sure that this is a really strategic trust building exercise and that it really exists for that purpose. If you have a website that's just not working for you, I want you to ask yourself, does this feel like me? Does it speak to my people? Is it clear what I do and how to work with me? If the answer is no, you probably need to go back to the foundation. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Go give your website some love or give yourself permission to wait until you are ready to invest fully. Either way, make sure that your website is intentional. And if you need another set of eyes on it, please reach out to me. I actually do offer website audits, and I would love to take a look at your website. Just DM me or send me an email and we'll chat about the details. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next week. All right, beautiful human. That's a wrap on this episode of Bold Women in Business. This episode was brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, with music by Shmukulele. But before you go, don't forget to take the Content Marketing Power Type quiz at honeybebold.com/quiz, because when your content fits your power type, showing up gets way easier and your marketing actually starts working for you. Until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and keep doing it your way.